a $5 a month fee and 60 cents operating costs. 60 cents. But it was the students' passion, which is extraordinary. So then some of these students go off to war. War ends, and the president at the university, at the time is Macquarie, agrees that an aviation program should indeed be in San Jose. Again, please remember, Tom Leonard is 24 years old and asked to design this emerging program. 1950, 4 years later, he's now the department chair. He's 28 years old. Not just a faculty member, but assigned the task of running the department. He hires excellent faculty, all with maintenance and aviation background. Some of these faculty members stay 30 years in the program. The program's now in Quonset huts on the main campus. Degrees in maintenance, airframe, and power plant and flight operations are the focus. It is the decade of the 50s, the 1950s, and the first turboprop propeller airplanes, prop jets, and jet airlines have come to market. The United States is experiencing post-World War II economic boom, and Professor is out there building relationships with United, Pratt & Whitney, Pan Am, and various other aviation institutions. 1960. This is when the department moves to San Jose Airport. I was almost going to say San Jose International Airport. It wasn't then. This is an outstanding achievement. An airport land lease is signed between Tom Leonard and Jim Nissen, the director of the airport. Also, a key player is Dutch Hammond, the city manager in San Jose. Now, the university, the president at the time, Walquist, also supports this. So Professor helps design the San Jose State Aviation Campus at San Jose International to serve aviation for the next 50 years. The faculty are outstanding. In fact, in typical Tom Leonard fashion, you have to hear this. This was a message left on my phone.
Sandra, Tom Leonard back. I just thought as I hung up that
Can you hear this?
I want to be sure to give credit.
Okay, stand by. We'll do it.
Sandra, Tom Leonard back again. I just thought as I hung up that we want to be sure to give credit to Nick Milosevic and Bob Ring and Jerry Shreve, Jerry Fairbairn, people like that somewhere along the way. Because without them, there wouldn't be any program. And you'll probably have some more questions, and I'll be armed. Thanks.
That is so Professor. Here we are tonight honoring him, and he wants to make sure his team is all recognized. I love that message. So, the aviation department out at the airport, Professor designs it with maintenance labs, classrooms, offices, a courtyard for students to gather, and ramp space for airplanes. Jet age has taken hold, and Boeing 707s, 727s, DC-8s, DC-9s are all flying, and there is a new emerging air traffic control demand. All the while, Professor is off building relationships. In fact, I just learned this past week that on his 3 months off during the summer, he would actually go out into industry and work at places like Lockheed Martin or Andrews Air Force Base. He would then bring those current day practices back to the aviation department and improve the curriculum if necessary. Constantly improving the program and constantly putting students first. He also was developing internships and getting the students jobs, by the way. 1970, the decade of the wide-body jumbo jet. Douglas DC-10s, Boeing 747s are on the scene. Locally, personal computers are being invented here in the neighborhood. Business jets are coming to the market. Of course, Jim Lafferty could tell us, more about that. Professor is out building relationships and always putting students first. 1980, MD-80s, new generation 737s in the Airbus 310. Again, corporate aviation is becoming very attractive here in San Francisco Bay Area. Professor is off building relationships. Not just building relationships, but maintaining relationships, improving course curriculum, and inviting industry to teach on a part-time basis. So he invites pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, corporate geniuses, corporate maintenance geniuses, and up-and-coming executives from the Silicon Valley to come to his aviation program and teach part-time. How fantastic. Please know that some of the students that graduate from San Jose State Aviation don't stay directly in aviation. They get outstanding jobs in this emerging industry called the Silicon Valley. They become very well-to-do, comfortably, and often turn right around and buy their own fleet of airplanes. So here we are with the 1990s. McDonnell Douglas and Boeing merged to compete with Airbus. By this time, most homes have personal computers. Professor. And again, he's out there building relationships. Friendships that have lasted a lifetime. Friendships that have helped drive an aviation transportation industry that has gone from prop jets to the new space travel here in the Silicon Valley. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and help me welcome and honor a man that has helped the aviation industry soar, and he's changed the world.
Thank you very much for an unbelievable introduction and reception and what have you. Let me tell you that this will not be a 50-minute speech. We got a little acclimated to that, and I'm getting old enough now so that I finally have broken the habit. But I do want to make a few comments that I've revised while I was sitting there at the table, but I think they're pertinent. First off, how did I get involved in this kind of stuff, aviation? Theoretically, I should have gone in the lumber business. I had a grandfather and a father and a lumber company in San Francisco called the Leonard Lumber Company. And I was the only guy around to follow on. And I liked logging, I liked the lumber business in general, but somehow those doggone airplanes got in the way. And they got in the way while I was in junior high school. And this is kind of an odd twist because it was prior to World War II, but the junior birdmen were interested in getting young kids playing around with airplanes. And in the junior high, they started a model airplane club. And I became a member. There was also another fellow in that same class, and his name was George Quinn, and believe it or not, sitting right here tonight is George Quinn and his wife Mary. And I'd like to ask them to stand if I can pick them out somewhere. There they are, way in the back of the room. George went on through Cal as an engineer and went through all the engineering loops and hoops, and is now retired, of course. But both of us were just so intense on model airplanes that eventually we got into gasoline-powered ones. And there's not much of a place in San Francisco to fly those. There was at Moffett Field. And my mother, God bless her, would load George and me and a couple of other kids in a Pierce Arrow automobile, along with free-flight gas-powered airplanes, and they had wing spreads like 7 feet. And how everybody and the airplanes got in there, I never know. But we'd make the trip down to Moffett Field and fly there and just have one great time. One of my memories down there that has always stuck with me was that there was one fellow that we didn't have much contact with, but his mother always started his engine for him. And she was really a very nice lady. We didn't have too much to do with him, but he went on to be an aero engineer and specialized in designing home-built aeroplanes. My old friend Rick Wilson, graduate of San Jose State, has for about 10 years been trying to build an airplane that was designed by this gentleman who went up to Boeing and did some things up there, but is well known for designing home-built airplanes. So Rick, I can still help you out if you need a little there. But where is Rick? Rick, how long have you been working on that airplane? 10 years. 10 years, and I'm not sure whether Rick's going to make it or not. I'm a little worried about that. But every time I talk to Rick and he's in the midst of that, I think of this fellow and his mother starting his airplane for him all the time. And if we could get her around, why, Rick could finish his airplane. Another comment or two that I hope won't bore you, but we had a lot of interesting people then, and one that I saw the daughter of here tonight, who just happens to be married to an Aero grad. Another fellow from junior high in San Francisco, who was a P-38 pilot during the war, and really quite an athlete and an all-around guy. Unfortunately, suffered a serious accident, and for a number of years has been just kind of on the edge. But Alf Karstens was another one of those guys back in the early days that could be at any seat here tonight. Unfortunately, he can't be. But his daughter's here. Now, a word or two on the most important thing, San Jose State. San Jose State Teachers College, one that I'd heard about all my life because my mother went there years ago. But San Jose was one of the early schools where students really put together a good flight activity. And that was back in the mid-30s. Along came the rustling for World War II, and it was determined that some schools should have pre-flight programs and eventually civilian pilot training programs. A lot of engineering schools and schools that some of us all went to did not get on that boat, but San Jose did. And they were one of the first 12 schools to become involved in the civilian pilot training program. Now, they needed airplanes to do that, and they had a flying club back in those days, and the flying club was out on the King Road Airport. There are a lot of houses there now, and it's short of Reed Hillview Airport, but if you were around in those early days, You remember that when you went to Reed, you passed another airport, and that was the one where San Jose State was. Well, they had to get the airplanes here, and they were manufactured back east. They wanted 4 Pipers, and then the flying club wanted 1 Taylor craft. So they determined that they'd send 5 students back to pick up the airplanes. No faculty advisor along. These are 5 students, and this is in the 30s. Kind of hard to believe. The students in 1939 had heard that there was a fair in New York. And that 1939 World's Fair was competing, of course, with the San Francisco World's Fair. But these guys were going to be there. So they determined that the schedule was too tight. They needed another day. And the best way to do it would be to take the car that they were driving across country and drive night and day so that they could save a day or so and go to New York and go to the fair. Then they could pick up airplanes in Pennsylvania and fly them back to the coast. That's the spirit of the Spartans. Those young guys did that and brought the airplanes back to San Jose. One of them went to the flying club. That was a Piper that they picked up, a Taylor craft, and they picked up 4 Cubs that became part of the CPT program. So it was just an amazing thing to turn students loose to do something like that, and they did it. And I think that has been the spirit of the San Jose State program ever since. They've competed in things, they've worked on things, they've done a good job. Let's see if there's some other item here that side on that. One of the students that made that trip is still alive, and he lives in Santa Cruz. I called him last week to see how things were going. George is now 96 years old, and he is just all-around guy, retired of course, but George was a Japanese student, and with the war coming along, why he could not put his flight capability to use, so he went up to one of the camps, stayed there most of the time, and then finally at the end of the war he was taken out of the camp, sent over to Japan because they thought he could speak Japanese. And George told me one time, hell, he said, I didn't know how to speak Japanese, I'm an American. but to Japan he went. But that was the spirit that I found at San Jose State. And I think from my dealing with students today, even though I'm, of course, long gone from the campus, that spirit still exists. I am astounded at what some of those young people can do, both male and female. Outstanding young people with an interest in the future of aviation. And then we've got some old guys that are here in the audience today, and they're still enjoying the world of the airplane. I think that's all I have to say. I thank everyone for being here tonight, but I also thank the whole field of aviation for what it can do for people and what I've seen it do for so many, where you get in an airplane and you drive it somewhere and you're doing your thing and you're responsible for it, and those habits reflect in all kinds of things that you do in life. It's a great field to be involved in. I don't think anybody can deny that. I think that's all I'd say tonight. Thank you very much. Let me say one more thing that I really overlooked and I should not have. That was never a one-man operation over there. We had Nick Milisevich, we had Bob Ring, we had all kinds of people, and we had Anita at kind of the end of my line. We had Kathy, we had a lot of secretaries and helpers that made it possible. And on the other end of the line, we had people on campus that were great to work with. I was lucky to do something that I had no plan on doing when I went back and went through school after World War II. Thank you again.
Oh, hang on. Tom, if you would, let's go ahead and stand on this side over here. Yeah, just stand right here for a moment. Now, I want to share something. We just started discussing this with Tom a number of months ago, and he was initially reluctant to accept this, and we really convinced him that yes, that it really was appropriate and made sense. Now, I kind of joked with him one day, which I have a lot of fun kind of kidding with him, and you have to know that for many, many years, Tom has been responsible for making these trophies. We import the glass from Italy. He creates the redwood base and mounts the eagle on top of the base. Well, this is actually the first year where we decided it wouldn't really be appropriate for Tom to make his own trophy. So here's what I want to show you. Go ahead. So the first year that Tom didn't make the trophy, it's now a two-part trophy. Tom, I assure you, we'll get you a better one. No, the seal broke. But this actually makes it very easy for me to read now, so let me go ahead and read it before we present you two parts of a trophy. The Aeroclub of Northern California Crystal Eagle Award, Professor Thomas E. Leonard, in recognition of his extraordinary leadership and significant lifelong contributions to aviation as Professor of Aeronautics and Chairman of the San Jose State University Aviation Department and its aviation programs, for his untiring and passionate dedication to helping countless students pursue their aviation goals in the fields of aircraft maintenance, piloting, manufacturing, airport and aerospace management, October 25th, 2014. We hereby present you our 32nd annual Crystal Eagle Award. All right, super. We're going to head and close here. I just wanted to mention one of the things in passing. First of all, I want to thank you all very much for coming here this evening and sharing what I think is going to be a memorable evening in many, many, many ways. Very fun evening. Let me go ahead and mention a couple things. There's the centerpieces on each of your tables can go home with you, except you have to take your glass, look at the bottom. Whichever glass has the star on the bottom, you have the centerpiece. The wonderful Chevy truck, that one's not available. That goes home with Tom. I want you to go ahead and take your badges. By the way, there's no rush to go out. But when you do, take your badges, and if you would, go ahead and deposit those in the box on the way out. And then we're going to be doing a checkout for the silent auction in the back of the room. And so Ron and a couple of other people are all set up for you. So if you have silent auction things that you've won, please go ahead and go to the back. And then finally, the final thing is, we have a request for anybody related to San Jose State to come on up stage now. We're going to take a photograph with Professor Leonard. Thank you very much. Drive safely. See you all next year. I don't think...